So in this video, I got 3 cave divers to tell their horror and scary cave diving experiences. Hear them tell their stories themselves.
So this was back in April of 2022. There were 3 of us, me, my cousin Taylor, and our friend Amir. We'd been hobbyist cave crawlers for like 3 years. We weren't influencers or adrenaline junkies or any of that Instagram crap. We just liked the solitude, the humbling feeling of being somewhere no one had stood in decades, or ever. It started off as something we did between college semesters, but after we graduated, we kept the tradition going. Once a year, one big trip. No tech, no outside contact, just us in the cave. We'd spend the week before camping nearby, grilling, playing cards, hiking in the daylight. This time, it was Mount Adams, Washington. Taylor had read a Reddit thread about an abandoned mineshaft network just southeast of the mountain. Not an official one, either. Apparently, the mouth of the shaft was sealed off in the 70s due to a string of minor collapses, but some spelunking community had mapped a few side tunnels before it was shut. And of course, none of us could resist. We found the shaft entrance early in the morning on April 14th. It was barely noticeable from the outside, just a slope of black rock behind a mess of pine trees. The seal had been broken, probably years ago, but nature had done a good job hiding it. We geared up. Helmets, pads, gloves, portable air meters, oxygen tanks, and lots of chalk for marking our path. The descent was sharp, more vertical than we expected, and it took nearly 20 minutes of slow belly sliding and rope checking before we hit the first chamber. It was quiet, like dead quiet, not even dripping water. That should have tipped us off. The mine turned into a crawlspace maze after about 100 feet. The tunnels were low, barely 3 feet in some places, and the air started getting denser, not dangerously low in oxygen, but enough that we could feel the difference in our chests. We chalked our turns, checked our readings, and kept going. At some point, no idea when or where, we took a wrong turn. Probably a split none of us noticed, but it didn't feel like that. It felt like the path we were following just stopped being the same path. We backtracked. At least, we thought we did. But the markings were gone. At first, we tried to play it cool. Amir joked about us being in the back rooms. Taylor kept checking his watch, saying we had a few hours of air left, and I kept looking for chalk dust or gear scratches, anything that could mark our previous trail. Nothing. The weirdest part? The layout of the cave didn't feel random anymore. It felt intentional. The walls weren't jagged like most natural caves or even blasted like a mine. They were smooth, curved, like tunnels made not by machinery, but by hands, or something else. Sometime after hour 6, we stopped for a break, sat in a tight dead-end chamber, shared a protein bar, checked air again, down to 30%. Not dangerous yet, but not great either. Then we heard it. No footsteps, no voice. Just breathing, but not human. It wasn't ragged or tired, it was steady, deep, like something enormous resting. We didn't say anything, not right away, but I saw it in Amir's eyes. He heard it too. We moved, fast, didn't care about caution anymore. We just picked a direction and kept crawling. That's when the air changed. Suddenly our meters started dropping fast, like fast. I heard Taylor gasp. He was trying not to panic, but I could hear that wheeze in his breath. Then we reached that final chamber. It was huge, too big for where we should have been underground. The tunnel just opened up like a throat, and we tumbled into it. We all hit the ground hard, but somehow in the same spot. The walls here were different. Black stone, but with etchings, not writing. More like patterns. Like a language meant to be felt, not read. And the temperature had dropped. Our breath fogged up instantly. In the center of the room, a pit, not deep, but round like a well, covered with something thin, skin-like. We didn't go near it. We just backed away slowly, trying to find another exit. And that's when the tunnel behind us was different. It wasn't the one we came through. It was angled up now, steep. But we didn't question it. We crawled like hell. No breaks, no food, just desperate movement. Amir started bleeding from his elbows. Taylor nearly passed out. We came out into sunlight 14 hours later. 14 hours we can't explain. We'd been underground for nearly 2 days. Taylor's phone had messages, missed calls, rescue alerts. We don't talk about it much anymore. Taylor quit cave diving, sold all his gear. Amir moved, changed his number, deleted every photo from that trip.
I started caving about 3 years ago. Nothing wild, mostly guided trips through roomy tunnels, the kind where there's still echo and airflow. Harmless stuff. Then I found out about this place through a guy named Ben, a quiet, no BS dude who's been exploring caves since before smartphones were a thing. He showed me pictures of this one tight crawl space near the base of an old limestone ridge in Tennessee. No name, not on any official map. He just called it The Latch. He told me it was one of those caves where you don't bring beginners, not because it's unstable or dangerous, but because once you're in, you're in. No standing room, no space to pivot. You either keep crawling forward or you back out the same way you came. I spent 3 weeks preparing, dropped 12 pounds just to be safer in tight gaps. Practiced breath control, loaded up with everything I needed. Chest rig, helmet, flashlight, backup flashlight, 2 comms, a snack gel, a tiny hydration bladder strapped to my stomach, and a GoPro strapped on top. I thought I was ready. The entrance was just a slit in the rock, half covered in leaves. I crawled in around 7 a.m. alone. I know, dumb. But I told my brother where I'd be and when to call for help if he didn't hear from me by nightfall. The first stretch was smooth, tight but manageable. I had to shimmy sideways, one shoulder pressed into dirt while my knees dragged forward. No standing, no kneeling, but enough space to tilt my head and shift if needed. After about 20 minutes, I reached a chamber about the size of a refrigerator box, just enough to curl my body and breathe deep. I logged a voice note, sipped water, and moved on. That's when things changed. The passage ahead narrowed. A sharp downward incline, just wide enough for my shoulders, with the ceiling tapering lower the further I went. But Ben had told me, you'll hit the latch about an hour in. That's the tightest part. Once you're through, it opens back up. So I pushed on. 15 feet into the squeeze, I was fully committed. Arms stretched out in front, toes dragging behind. Rock above me, rock below. My helmet scraped with every inch. Then it happened. I exhaled to push through a particularly narrow dip and couldn't inhale again. My chest was compressed. My ribs didn't have room to rise. I froze. Couldn't move forward. Couldn't back up. I couldn't even turn my head. Just rock, everywhere. I tried to stay calm, thought, exhale deeper, shrink yourself, you're fine. I tried, but the second I exhaled again, I slipped another half inch downward. It didn't feel like gravity pulled me. It felt like the cave took me, and now my chest was fully pinned. I couldn't breathe properly anymore. I was taking these short, shallow gasps that barely counted. I couldn't even expand my lungs to yell. Every instinct said thrash, but I couldn't. My arms were pinned out in front of me. My helmet was jammed against a stone lip. My knees had no room to push. All I could do was listen, and in that dead silence, I swear I could hear my own blood rushing through my ears. Every heartbeat thudding like it was echoing through the stone. Then I noticed something worse. With every breath I managed to squeeze out, the walls seemed to respond. Not in a ghostly way. I mean, the air pressure in that little stone tomb shifted, like the rock itself was inhaling with me. When I breathed in, the walls squeezed tighter. When I breathed out, they barely released. I wasn't hallucinating. It was like the cave was breathing with me. And the more I panicked, the faster the rhythm got. I don't know how long I was stuck. Could have been 30 minutes. Could have been 2 hours. I had a whistle on my vest. Couldn't reach it. I tried calling for help. Couldn't get enough air to raise my voice. Eventually, I made the choice. Try to back out. But with no room to bend my arms, I had to use micro movements. Wiggle a fingertip, flex a forearm, scrape the top of my helmet until I could wedge it back a centimeter. I don't even remember most of it. Just this slow, painful backwards inching, inch, inch, inch. I remember screaming once when my boot caught on a rock lip and wouldn't budge. That scream didn't come out like a human sound. It was all throat and rage and terror. Then I hit the chamber I passed earlier. The moment I could curl my body again, I started sobbing. Couldn't stop. Didn't care how stupid it looked. I crawled out of that cave covered in dirt and blood. My chest had rock burns. My forearms were raw. I didn't even look back at the entrance. Just got in my car and drove. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt that pressure again, like the earth was lying on top of me. Ben texted me a few days later. "Did you hit the latch?" I never replied, because whatever I went through, I don't think that was the latch. I think that cave decided it wanted me, and for a while it almost had me.
We weren't even supposed to go that deep. It was me, my brother-in-law Drew, and his best friend Zaid. The trip was last minute, one of those, we'll only be in there a few hours, just a fun run type of things. Drew had just gotten a promotion. Zaid was about to move to Colorado, and I was going stir-crazy at home. We picked Lava Canyon because it wasn't touristy, and the crawl system beneath the cliffs south of Mount Adams was still semi-unmapped. People knew of it, but no one really spent much time tracking it. We read about this narrow entrance near a dry runoff point, about 30 yards off the trail, just big enough to slide into if you knew where to look. We thought it would be a cool little detour, like a hidden challenge. We didn't realize how deep it went, or how fast we'd lose the thread of where we were. The first few hours were smooth, hard crawling, but straightforward. Packed gear, headlamps on mid-beam, oxygen carefully logged, markers left on corners. The cave had a kind of rhythmic breathing to it. We'd crawl a tight vertical squeeze, pop into a little pocket, drink some water, check GPS, and move on. We were supposed to reach this area called the Hook, a 3-way junction with a little arch overhead that marked the end of the main tunnel. Then we'd loop back. But that never happened. We never saw the arch. Instead, about 4 hours in, we hit a split, left or right. Zaid swore he recognized the right tunnel from a trip report he'd seen online. 2 left curves, then a sharp dip and a crawl-through. Pops right out near the ridge. We trusted him. We went right. That's when everything slowly started going to hell. The dip never came. Instead, we found ourselves worming deeper into a compression tunnel. Tight, sharp rocks scraping at our arms. Ceiling so low we had to tilt our heads sideways just to breathe. We kept moving, assuming it'd widen out, but it never did. The air started to thin. At first, we thought it was just exertion, but by the 6th hour, our tanks were down to 30%. That's when Zaid admitted this wasn't the tunnel he thought it was. No markers, no landmarks, no signal, just a rock throat that kept tightening around us the deeper we went. We tried to backtrack, but something had shifted. It didn't feel like we were crawling the same path. We were making turns we didn't remember making. Dead ends popped up where we were sure a tunnel had just been. Every wall started to look the same. Chalk didn't stick to the damp spots. Everything we drew got erased or blurred by the gritty, crawling dust. And the worst part? We started hearing each other breathing like we were in echo chambers. Voices bouncing back in ways that made it sound like we were crawling in circles. That's when Drew said it. We're burning oxygen just trying to get unlost. We'd burned most of it trying to correct our path. Panicking while crawling, trying to stay low and fast in a space that wouldn't let you move more than a few inches per breath. We took 5-minute turns trying to scout out different directions, crawling into vents, tiny shafts, half-crushed splits in the wall. One route led to a drop so steep we didn't dare test it. Another had a soft breeze. Zaid chased it for 15 minutes before realizing it was just the air from our own passage reflecting back off a loop. We were screwed. Then we found it. A horizontal shaft, barely a foot tall, with a dusty metal carabiner wedged in a crack, like someone had been there before us. That gave us hope. We took that shaft. And I'll tell you right now, it felt like the earth was crushing us the whole way. It was too tight to speak, too tight to turn your head. You could only listen to the rasp of your breath and the rhythmic clink of knees brushing loose gravel. It went on forever. Sometimes it narrowed. Other times it felt like you were climbing over old bones, but it was just dried roots and rock fragments. No room to stretch, no room to think, just panic, muscle fatigue, and the ticking down of your tank. When I say I almost passed out, I mean I literally saw stars, like tiny pinpricks at the edge of blackness. Then, just as my vision tunneled, Drew's voice called out, "Light, bro, I think I see something." The shaft opened into a side alcove. Air was stale but breathable. GPS still didn't work, but after another 20 minutes of crawling blindly through cracked volcanic rock, we found a marked wall. Rescue Cut Point, 1999. We had come up under the old tunnel system, a bypass, one that hadn't been documented properly since a collapse 20 years ago. We were brought out 2 hours later by a volunteer cave rescue unit. They told us we'd come within minutes of oxygen failure. Zaid had bruised ribs. Drew had nerve compression in both arms. I had mild hypoxia. They asked us where we'd gone wrong. We couldn't answer, because every part of that cave looked like every other part. It's been months. We haven't gone back underground. They say caves are just stone and gravity. But when you're trapped down there, they feel like they know you.